Welcome to Ultimate Decades Challenge. This is everything that happened in my Ultimate Decades playthrough in the first 50 years. If you're not familiar with what Ultimate Decades even is, this is legacy type of challenge that also moves through the time. This challenge was originally created by Zombie Cleo to get your Sims from 1890s to 2010s and play through the history of those decades. I play Morbid Gamer version of the challenge that starts in 1300s and goes all the way to modern day. The point of it to live historically accurate as much as possible in The Sims and get your family's legacy to survive to modern times. There are a lot of rules to this challenge and they always linked in the description if you want to read them for yourself. But let me start telling you about my legacy. It all started with a young man named Edmund Burnenbrook. Edmund was a servant in the house of Matthias Parr, extremely wealthy baron, who accumulated his wealth in a bit of an unusual manner. He was selling to other rich people these very unique relics of a dragon. Edmund or other people working for Parr household didn't know where the dragon came from, how Parr family obtained it, or how baron capable of controlling the beast. He just happened to have a dragon that obeyed him entirely. Also, Baron and Dragon shared a temperament, an explosive one. It was not rare for Matthias Parr to yell at and hit his servants, and it was not rare for his dragon to burn them with fire. Edmund saw other servants die from burns, and he himself also suffered many injuries and had scars from numerous burns all over his body. One day, our main character, Edmund Burnenbrook, got fed up with that life and decided to start a new one. He decided to escape his master, and not just escape, but also steal a dragon egg. He thought that maybe he himself can sell an egg, and that way give himself a better start in his new life. And after all, he'd been cleaning Dragon's enclosure for many years and Dragon very used to him and would allow him to come that close. So that's exactly what he did. But Baron found out, and him and his people chased Edmund all over the country, forcing him to flee way farther than he originally planned. In his attempt to escape in fear for his life, Edmund was running away through the forest, and he was running away for so long that he eventually arrived on the land of a different king. Finally hoping to sell this stupid egg and settle somewhere. Only here, in this country, no one knows about dragons, and no one sees value in their eggs. So that's how this Ultimate Decades story started. Edmund being alone, with no money, no home, but with dragon egg, as an annoying reminder about his past life. And with that, in year 1300, he started his new life in Handford. He found himself in Bramblewood Forest. He was foraging for food, also catching fish, which eventually will become his main line of work. Edmund went from a servant to a thief to a fisherman. He will take all of that fish and foraged fruits and vegetables and take them to the town part of Handford to sell to the vendors there, and that's how he started making his first money with honest work. He planted his first harvest. In Ultimate Decades, it's very important to stay on top of planting because you can only harvest once per season. He got himself bees as another source of food and money and slowly started building his house. That process of building a house was very encouraged by him meeting Martha. Martha Greenwood was a young lady from Handford. She was a farmer's daughter. She was young, naive, but very cheerful. One day, while Edmund was fishing, he spotted her over the river and immediately fell in love. And Martha also fell in love pretty quickly after they started talking to each other. So that very encouraged house building process, so Edmund would have something to show to her parents when he eventually proposed to Martha. She was so in love with him that she was not willing to hear any reasons why he might be a bad match for her, reasons being financial and who even this Edmund Burnenbrook. He was not living in our village before. By seeing love between them, her parents did allow them to get married. Their wedding being blessed by a rainbow in the sky, and they started their life as young couple, young family, farmers, started working up some sort of routine, taking care of the garden, thinking about maybe potentially getting animals, and of course, trying for baby. Or rather, using risky woohoo in The Sims 4. That's part of the rules of Ultimate Decades, that main household uses risky woohoo with different percentages of chance getting pregnant for different age stages. For example, for young adult, it's 25%. It took them quite a few years to get pregnant with their first child. In ultimate decades, when baby is born, dice must be rolled to determine if baby and birthing mother will survive the birth. And unfortunately, Marta did not survive giving birth to this baby. Her child did survive. Baby boy was born and he was named Harold Burnenbrook, but Marta passed away. That was a very unexpected moment in ultimate decades that really nicely illustrated why morbid gamers rules advise you to start with 3 households. Something else happened on that day when little heir to this legacy, Harold, was born and his mom died. That useless dragon egg that been rattling on the floor this whole time, and Edmund been kicking it like a ball just when he needs to get his anger out. That egg hatched, so little Harold also shares his birthday with a dragon, a new dragon in this world. The loss of his first love, Marta, broke Edmund. It broke his heart, it shattered his will to live. He was just sitting next to River for hours on that same spot where he saw her for the first time, just staring to the distance, not reacting to anything. Marta's grandmother moved in to take care of the newborn baby while Edmund was recovering from his loss. But to having only one child for the whole generation will not allow this legacy to survive. So after a year of grieving, I decided that it's time for Edmund to move on and get married again. During that year of grief, he would often go to the cemetery to sit at Marta's grave. There was always someone at that cemetery, obviously, but he noticed one person that would be there every time Edmund would go there. He would sometimes take his son Harold with him, and he would notice Harold playing with a little bit of an older boy there, and that boy would come to the cemetery with his mom. That boy and his mom was Eden and Peter Goodman. The father of the Goodman family, Reginald Goodman, recently passed away. Eden appeared to grieve loss of her husband really hard. Her and Edmund started talking to each other, bonding over their experience of losing their loved ones and also raising a child. In Eden's case, by herself entirely. At least Edmund had Mrs. Juliana Pham. Let's be respectful to Marta's grandmother. She did a lot for this family, basically raising Harold. As Edmund talked to Eden more and more, she started telling him her life story. She was from very small, very poor village in the Willow Creek. She lived there with her parents. They were very struggling. Then she met this young blacksmith, Reginald Goodman, who fell in love with her and wanted to marry her, even despite the fact that for him it would be marrying down. But they did get married. She moved to Hanford with him, and she had a lovely life with her husband, maybe with the exception of his brother, who had drinking problems and also anger problems. But unfortunately, Reginald suffered from illness and died very young, leaving his wife and son alone. And if that not bad enough, his brother then kicked them out of the house. So Eden was left not just without a husband, but also without a place to live. She came to church to seek shelter, and local priest allowed her to live in the church tower with her son. Upon some consideration, Edmund decided that Eden would make a great mother for Harold, and he can help her raise her son. So on a very rainy day, Edmund proposed to Eden. He took her to his house, introduced her to his son, his deceased wife's grandmother, and his dragon. That was very interesting living situation, and honestly, these families only get weirder. Edmund decided to trust Edmund the dragon is not dangerous for people and accepted his proposal. They got married and she became Eden Burnenbrook. They started living together, getting in some sort of routine. Their sons were very good friends and growing older together. After a little over a year together, Eden became pregnant. Also that year 1308, King Mortimer Goth passed away. The Sims 4 Ultimate Decades universe is loosely based on medieval England, but I decided not to recreate a real world monarchy. Instead, I made Goth family into monarchy, at least into royal family of this region of the world. In episodes of Ultimate Decades, I've been exploring the story of royal family too, kind of leaning in the whole Belagan missing thing, but I'm not going to go into that this video. This video is going to be about the main legacy and what happened to them. From the perspective of this household, they heard about King passing and that his son Prince Alexander Goth will be coronated as a king, and that's everybody in the kingdom dream to see young king on the day of his coronation. So some people from the little town of Hanford, where our Burnenbrook legacy resides, decided to go together to Willow Creek and see the coronation, or rather king after coronation, because peasants obviously not allowed to see the coronation. And Edmund also decided to go to the Willow Creek, not just to see the coronation, but also to see Eden's parents, because remember, she's from Willow Creek and she wanted him to see her parents, to tell him how their daughter is doing, to then tell her how her parents is doing. She herself was not able to go because she was heavily pregnant at the time. So Edmund and a company of some other people from the Hanford traveled to Willow Creek. That was very fun adventure to see new sights, to spend some time together, maybe spend a night in the forest drinking wine, singing songs, or mead. Edmund saw newly coronated King Alexander Goth coming out on the balcony, waving his hand to the people along with his queen. By the time Mortimer died, Alexander was already married and had children of his own. But more importantly for Edmund, he realized that he did not care about king that much. On that coronation, he saw Baron Matthias Parr, and he decided to ask him about the dragon egg and the egg hatching when his first wife died. Because deep in his heart, Edmund felt that those two things are connected. There was some sort of special connection that Edmund had with the dragon that hatched from the egg. It's almost like they understood each other without words. There was this deep sadness and pain that Edmund was carrying inside of him, feeling responsible for his first wife's death. And for some reason he thought that the little dragon, by that time the dragon was actually still little, was also always sad. Like there is some sort of invisible matter connecting them. He knew how dragon was feeling, what he wants, what he needs, which is useful, because dragons don't speak Simlish, but very odd. And along those odd feelings was feeling that somehow the dragon's birth was related to Martha's death. And unfortunately, Parr confirmed his worries. He told him that dragons don't come into this world that easily. It requires a lot of life energy to hatch a dragon egg. An egg really wants to be hatched. Determined yet weak, a small dragon inside of an egg would often drain energy from someone who's already weakened. A people who ill, injured, in any kind of poor health, anyone in vulnerable state. And woman giving birth fits that description a lot. Hearing that information made Edmund very angry, because Matthias Parr visited him on his wedding day with Martha. He showed up to the wedding, after everyone else already left, to inform Edmund that he forgives him for stealing an egg, that Edmund is now the owner of that egg, and only mysteriously told that having a dragon comes with a very high price, perfectly knowing that giving a proper information on the matter could save somebody's life. Edmund understood that that was done on purpose and started a fight with Baron Parr and got beaten up by Baron Parr. Edmund may be young, but Parr is strong and trained, so he just left Edmund curled up on the ground, angry and pathetic. After that horrible experience, Edmund still had to go and visit Eden's parents. He arrived into the small village of Fondrico in the middle of the night. Surprisingly found a lot of people awake at that hour, which made it worse because more people saw him dirty and beat up, also smelling of fish, but that was kind of a norm for a fisherman. He asked around and he found Eden's father, Dudley Hargrove. Unfortunately, Eden's mother did not live long enough to hear about her daughter's fate. Disease, hard work and lack of proper nutrition cut her life short. Edmund and Eden's father Dudley spent quite a few hours sitting around the fire just talking. Edmund was telling Dudley everything about his daughter. Dudley kept saying that bad things always happen to people from this village, but he thought that her leaving the village would in a way break that curse tied to the village, not to the people. Edmund was somewhat surprised that Dudley believes in curses. He remembered that Eden believes in them too, and that she was also talking about these tall, mysterious people that roam in the forest around their village. They always have their faces covered with various masks, and they're really scary and dangerous. And when she was a child, adults would tell them not to go in the forest because those creatures would steal them or harm them. But Edmund thought that that was a scary tale to stop children from going into the forest alone. But when he mentioned that to Dudley confirmed that as truth, that this land, Foundry Cove, used to belong to elves, but one of the Goth kings at some point really wanted this land for his people, so it's been taken from elves with violence, obviously. King's army came to this land with war, and elves had to run away, hide in the forest. They were chased by King's army and continuously being chased to this day, but they managed to disappear every time when someone tries to follow them. But they still occasionally can be seen in the forests. People that now live in Foundry Cove believe them to be evil. No good person would ever cover their face. Edmund was tired and overwhelmed by these mysterious stories. He just wanted to go to bed, and he was offered one in one of the houses. He fell asleep fast, but almost as fast woke up from his nightmares. When he woke up, he saw someone staring at him through the window. They moved, and he realized that that was a person wearing a mask made out of animal skull. Edmund felt compelled to follow them. He couldn't explain why he wanted to follow them. He just felt pulled toward them. He walked out of the house on the rainy night, followed that weird person into the woods and through the woods, but at some point they just disappeared. He was not able to tell where did they go. He noticed a big willow tree in the forest, and that tree looked like it almost glowing, but he spent a lot of time staring at the tree, being almost hypnotized by it, until one of the village people came to him and told him that it might not be the best idea to walk in the forest during the rain in one single shirt and hose, even without your shoes on. You can easily catch cold that way. Spooked by his night adventures, when Edmund returned to the village, he offered his father-in-law, Dudley, to come with him to Hanford and live the rest of his life, not in this horrible scary village, but with his daughter and grandchildren, and Dudley agreed to that. So together they returned to Hanford. While they were doing that side quest that I decided important enough to the story, Eden had a baby. She had a baby boy. I named him Ulrich, or one of you named him. At some point I started asking for names in the comments, so maybe that name came from the comments. I just don't remember how early in the challenge I started asking for names, but unfortunately Ulrich did not survive his infant birthday and he passed away. By that point we were nearing the end of the first decade of this challenge, also Edmund's adult birthday. Remember death rolls? They were rough, especially they were rough for young adults and adults. For example, for aging up from young adult to adult in Morbid Gamer rules, you need to roll d20 for your sim, and if they roll anything below 9, they die. And that's exactly what happened to Edmund. He passed away on his adult birthday. The founder of our legacy, Edmund Burnenbrook, lived the whole of 10 years. In the moment of his death, his wife Eden was pregnant. She gave birth to a girl. We named her Cora, and Cora did survive her birth, as well as her infant and toddler role. So Edmund left 2 children by the time he died, Cora and Harold Burnenbrook. That was a concerning situation to say the least to be in, especially when we were coming up close to the first event of Ultimate Decades, the Great Famine. Between Edmund dying and Great Famine started, nothing really happened, just more birthdays for Cora and Harold that they successfully went through. Great Famine, however, immediately started with tragedy. The famine lasts 3 years, from 1315 to 1318. By the end of the event in 1318, you're supposed to roll death rolls for the event. However, Eden had her adult birthday in the beginning of the famine in the year 1315, and she also did not survive her adult birthday. So children lost all of their parents, as well as elders living in the house by the time were already died just from the old age. So Cora, Harold, and Cora's half-brother Peter were left without adults. Because of that, I decided to put them temporarily in the household of Harold's grandparents, Greenwoods. Cora's half-brother Peter at the time was in his blacksmithing apprenticeship to follow in his biological father's footsteps. So he was living there with his uncle. Yeah, his teacher was his uncle, the one who kicked him and his mother out of the house. Side characters aside, Harold and Cora lived with Harold's grandparents' family through the whole famine, and in year 1318, I rolled their Great Famine rolls for them. In this event, you roll in d8, and if your sim rolls 3 or 7, they die of starvation. And that's what happened to Harold. On this very first event of Ultimate Decades, we lost our heir. That makes Cora heiress of the legacy, because she's the only surviving child. In the rules, heirship goes to the oldest son, but if there is no sons, then it goes to the oldest daughter. She lived with Greenwoods for a couple of years after that, until her half-brother Peter was old enough to care for her, and then she returned to Bramblewood Forest. Her half-brother Peter and his wife Rebecca lived with her for a while, taking care of her because she was still a child. They lived with her until she was 13 years old. That's the age in the Ultimate Decades when you age your character into teenager, and then they decided that she's old enough to live on her own and moved out. We kept in touch with her half-brother Peter for his whole life. He had very interesting life. It was very interesting to get random letters from him. The man did a lot. Not good things, but a lot of things. The heiress of the Burning Brook legacy. She was a teenager, she was a self-assured and erratic teenager, living alone, handling the whole house, animals, crops, and a dragon. She was struggling to keep up with all of that by herself, but she was very determined to make it work, to make it great again, to continue with what her parents started. Time came to choose a future bachelor for her, and we chose him together. You guys submitted your bachelors on the gallery under hashtag LunaGamesUDC, as well as I asked for last name suggestions in the comments under one of those videos. And in the polls on the community tab of the channel, you voted for the bachelor himself, and you chose Citric, and for the last name, and you chose Raincourt. So Citric Raincourt arrived into our universe. Citric was a character that I would probably never make myself, because his whole thing is that he was very kind and positive, optimistic. After everyone being depressed in the first generation, that was quite a change. Citric was supposed to be a farmer boy, so I decided that he was raised in a very good, loving family, but not really wealthy family, so to not be a burden on his parents, he decided to make a life for himself and maybe travel to a different town, believing that his parents taught him well and everything will work out for him. I was trying to lean in his optimism. After arriving to Hanford, he met Cora. They met for the first time in the middle of the night looking for mushrooms. Their cute little romance started, they started going on dates. They got married at 16 years old. In this challenge in 13th century, you can marry your Sims at 16. I don't really want to be always doing that, but with Cora, I needed all of the time available to me. At this point, we're essentially starting legacy over. We have one Sim. This family tree needs to branch out somehow. We need all of the time for babies that we can get. Because of that, I also decided to give this new family a little bit of a boost and turn off on the lane line lot trait. And at this point, we no longer Burning Brook legacy. At this point, we Raincourt legacy. A couple of things to note about Cora's and Citric's lives, because I made some changes. A very big change that affected this whole challenge is death rolls. I decided to use different death rolls. Morbid Gamers death rolls based on life expectancy, which skewed by high infant mortality rate in medieval times. So it makes that most of your characters will die at 20 or 30. Which not historically accurate. If person passed their childhood, they have very high chances of living until 40 or 50 even. So for more historical accuracy and also easier time playing, I decided to use Chic Sims death rolls. Chic Sim death rolls make it easier to survive birthday roll for teenagers, young adults and adults, but make it harder to survive birthday rolls for babies and infants, and also for birthing moms, to more accurately represent lifespan in medieval times. So that definitely made it easier for this second generation. Another temporary change that I made, essentially I added a new event. I've been calling it Long Winter. We had a winter that lasted over a decade. The only reason for that is because I played that period of time in December. I did Vlogmas, but in Ultimate Decades, posting episode of Ultimate Decades 25 days in a row in December, and I wanted festive vibes. So because of that, I decided to torture my Sims and give them decade-long winter. My mistake, over 2 decades long winter. Winter season being several decades long affected harvesting patterns. Sims couldn't plant anything that would not survive in winter, but I did allow them to harvest winter crops every 2 weeks, because prior to that my season cycle was 2 weeks long. Citric and Cora together had 12 children. For beginning of their marriage, they had on the lane line lot trait turned on, but when they turned 20 years old, I turned off that trait for them. I decided that it would be a little too much if they had it for their whole lives. So we have sets of twins in the beginning, and then later just one child at a time. However, despite of Cora giving birth to 12 children, a lot of them died at birth or in infancy. First, they had 2 girls, Xion and Isolde. Xion survived, but Isolde died. Then they had 2 girls again, Beatrice and Daisy. Beatrice died and Daisy survived. and then they had 2 girls again. Yes, that was 6 girls in a row. These girls were called Blanche and Eira. Blanche survived, Eira died. Then after I turned off on the lion lot trait, they had 1 girl, Noelle. After that, they had twins again, but without lot trait this time. And this time they had boys finally. We named them Win and Yule. Only Win survived, Yule died. Then they had another girl. Her name was Eira, and yes, I did reuse name. We already had Eira, but because first Eira lived a day in game, I decided that would be fine. After that, they had another boy named Harold. I wanted to name him after Cora's brother that died in famine, but unfortunately this Harold died too immediately after being born. And their last child, another son named Boreas. Boreas also died at birth. As well as in that birth, Cora herself died. This is how her life ended, in childbirth, which was probably expected. I was pushing my luck with her a lot. 12 children is 12 birth rolls. But during her life, Cora did a lot. She was first sim in her lineage to learn how to ride a dragon. Also first one to learn that dragon can lay both hatchable and non-hatchable eggs. She threw a lot of dragon eggs in the compost bucket. Her knowledge about dragons was limited to what she learned herself. Her family really did not preserve well the knowledge how dragon eggs hatch. By the time both of her parents died, she was around 5 years old. So her limited knowledge didn't allow her to tie death of her son Harold to a second dragon of this family being born. Hatchable egg laid by a dragon that this family had for a while, and at this point was already a fully grown dragon, quietly laid next to the dragon, waiting for opportunity. And weak newborn Harold became that opportunity for a dragon. In the mod that I use for dragons, all dragons technically female, because all of them can lay eggs. So I decided to kind of nerf how many dragons can be in the world, and also for more realism to flip a coin when dragon is hatched, if the dragon is male or female. So just basically, will I acknowledge the dragon's ability to lay eggs or not? Overall, Raincoat household for a while there lived very peaceful farmers' peasants' life. Family home saw a big expansion during second generation. Maybe cheerful spirit of Raincore family was able to survive several decades of winter, but it was definitely shattered by the war. In the year 1337, first part of 100 Years' War started. 100 Years' War split into several parts, each part split into, let's call them, several waves. When new male characters, aged from teen to adult, can get enlisted. You're supposed to roll d4 for all your male characters, and if they roll 4, they head off to war. The only male character of appropriate age that we had at the time was Citric, the father of the family, and he did roll 4. The only male sim that could go to war went to war. I moved him out to a different lot that was supposed to be my so-called war camp. I set up that lot in Newcrest. After living on the camp for 5 years, you're supposed to roll d20 for all currently enlisted sims, and if your sim rolls 3, then they die as a cause of war. And Citric rolled 3, because of course he did. I decided to give him another chance and use pleading in the game, pleading to Grim Reaper mechanic. Peter, his brother-in-law, was enlisted with him, so Peter pled to Grim Reaper, and luckily Citric's life was spared, and he got to return home to his wife and children. When he left, Cora was pregnant with Eira, so when he came back, Eira was 4 or 5 year old toddler seeing her father for the first time. Also, telling you about that event at war reminded me about the fact that on young adult birthday for Citric and Cora, they had it on the same day. Citric also rolled a bad number. He was also supposed to die, but that was the moment when I decided to use pleading in game for the first time. I was not using it before because I was being stupid, no other reason for that, but I decided to start using it then because I was just not ready to go through the whole losing spouse, finding a second husband thing. The second generation was about giving this legacy as much chance as possible. So Citric returned home from war. By that point in time, 2 of his children were already teenagers, and in general, older children of this family were starting to become teens, and I started a process of marriage roles. That was a new thing for this family, because we did not have a side households before. In Ultimate Decades, main household marries automatically, and they have as many children as they can, using risky percentages. But for side household, rules are different. At this point in time, our next generation heir, third generation heir, would be Win. So all of his sisters are considered side households. When they age up into teenagers, we rolled for them a marriage roll. For 14th century, you roll d20, and if sim rolls from 3 to 1, they never marry, and if they roll 4 and bigger, they will marry. So as older girls were aging up into teenagers, I was going to the gallery where I was picking a bachelors for them from the sims that you guys made under the same hashtag LunaGamesUDC. After side household couple is married, they also have a baby roll. Baby roll determines how many children they will have, because side households using just try for baby to make it easier, because you're not actually playing as them. For baby roll, you roll in d12 for them, and if they roll 1, they have no children. If they roll 2 to 12, this is the number of children that they will have. The oldest daughter of the family, Sean, also I've been recently told that this name is actually pronounced as Keone, but I've been calling her Sean throughout her whole life. I'm so sorry if that's bothering you, but it would not make sense for me to start calling her Keone for this recap video. The oldest daughter of the family, Sean, rolled to Mary and married to Thomas Rosewood and became Sean Rosewood. Sean was quiet and serious oldest daughter. As a child, she had a friend, Dust Bunny, who was bringing her a lot of weird things, ranging from some fruits and vegetables and dusty toys to a 10,000 simoleons golden frog. So we kind of went in with the idea that she is into weird things and artifacts and undiscovered plants and things. And her husband Thomas was son of a family of people who were traveling around the world discovering relics of the old civilizations and studying them. And their son unknowingly married a girl that has this almost supernatural power of finding those magical relics. We had an idea that, I think it was somebody's idea in the comments actually, that they got married and she moves to their house with this golden frog that she thought just a little trinket that her Dust Bunny brought her, and she kept it just because it's pretty, but maybe it's something very important and powerful that Rosewood family, Thomas's parents, been searching for their whole lives. The second oldest surviving daughter of the family, Daisy, also rolled to marry, and she married Nicholas Hawthorne. Also, marrying children comes with dowries. Forgot to mention that. If your Sims marries poor, you have to pay 500 simoleons. If your Sims marries middle class, you have to pay 5,000 simoleons as a dowry. And if your Sims marries rich, you have to pay 10,000 simoleons as a dowry. I considered Rosewood family, in which oldest daughter married a rich family, so we paid 10,000 simoleons of dowry. Second daughter married poor. Nicholas Hawthorne was just a humble fisherman, so we only had to pay 500 simoleons. After second daughter of the family married, next notable event that we had is the second wave of war, or rather men being called to war, because war was still going. This time we were rolling for 3 Sims: Citric, the father of the main household, but also Thomas and Nicholas, husbands of the side households, because they also considered our family. And none of them went to war this time, thankfully. But literally the next year, in year 1348, probably the scariest so far event arrived: the Black Plague. In the Black Plague event, you flip a coin to see which of your Sims live or die. So it's 50% chance of your Sims dying. Also, when that event arrived, I decided for this event and for all of the events to come not to plead in them, because I like to suffer, apparently. I will still be pleading at birthday rolls and birthing rolls, but pleading at events for some reason felt wrong, like it would skew the percentage of Sims surviving and dying. And events are supposed to be rough. We started with rolling for the main household. By that point in time, Cora was already dead from childbirth. 2 older girls were married. So main household consisted of Citric, the father, Blanche, Nael, Win, the heir and only boy, and also little Aira. We flipped coin for each of them and Win died. I want to remind you that Cora gave birth to 12 children. only 3 of those children were boys. 2 of them died upon birth. One of them also took her with him. And their only surviving son that lived to be a child died during the Black Plague. At that point, we collectively started to believe that boys are cursed in this legacy. Moving on to the side households, we had 2 of them at that point. First side household was Rosewood household, and we were rolling for Sean, her husband Thomas, and at that point that had 2 sons, Arnold and Noel. We flipped coins for each one of them, and Thomas, Sean, and Arnold died. Only Noel, their youngest son, he was the only surviving sim from this household. And at that point in time, he was infant. Also, death of Win and his older brother made him new heir. He got adopted by the main household because he was left all alone. Our second side household, Hawthorne household, consisted of Nicholas, Daisy, and their son Marshall. So we rolled for Nicholas, Daisy, and Marshall, and Nicholas and Daisy died. Only their son Marshall survived. He was infant at that point in time. So main household adopted 2 infants who lost their parents during Black Plague. To sum up the Black Plague event, we lost 6 people from our family. After that, Marshall, Hawthorne, and Noel Rosewood started living with the main household. They both had their toddler birthday, and both of them survived that birthday and became toddlers. In year 1349, which I will count as the last year of 50 years, because we started counting from 0. Blanche, next oldest daughter of the family, got married. She married a man named Vuk Novak and became Blanche Novak. Originally, Blanche was supposed to marry a different sim, but their chemistry kind of didn't work for me. Blanche is evil sim, and I thought that she needs someone like her. And when she met this random evil guy in the tavern and started arguing with him, I decided that he is her fate. We gave him a makeover. I decided to make him into a werewolf and also gave him a new name. For a while, I wanted to turn Moonwood Mill in Slavic culture-inspired part of my magical medieval world and play on combination of Slavic culture and werewolves. So Vuk became my opportunity to do that. He is from Moonwood Mill, he's traveling the world, and in the Hanford he met Blanche, and they had somewhat enemies to lovers storyline. After Vuk got really angry just at some random guy at the market, he turned into a wolf, and some Sims from Hanford saw him, so he decided to flee Hanford after that, and he took Blanche with him. Not before getting married though, everything was appropriate. And it also involved a dowry. So Vuk and Blanche moved to Moonwood Mill. By that time, next daughter of the family, Noelle, was already a teenager. She also rolled to marry. Her bachelor was waiting for her there in the world, as well as many more weddings and birthdays and death waiting for our legacy in the rest of this century. But this is everything that happened in the first 50 years of my Ultimate Decades playthrough. I will link a playlist with all of the episodes of Ultimate Decades in the description down below. You can just click on that and it will take you to the first episode and you can start watching from the beginning if that's what you're interested in. But I will also link separately 41st episode, because 41st episode starts in year 1350, just right after everything that I just told you. So if you just want to watch this and continue from the year 1350 forward, I will link that in the description for easier navigation. Also, let me know in the comments if we need separate playlists for every decade or every 50 years, because at some point one episode for the whole decades might just get a little hard to navigate. I think this is all for this video. This is going to be a long one. I tried to be concise with it, but I also didn't want to just talk you through the family tree. I also wanted to give you a feeling, a vibe, how it's been, what characters' personalities were, and I feel like I missed so much. There is so much more I can tell you about each character, but I realize that is overwhelming amount of information. I'm very passionate about Ultimate Decades and about these little legacies that we've been playing. Also very grateful for a little community that we built, that I can share all of these stories about these imaginary characters with. So if you want to join our little community, consider subscribing to this channel. If you want to follow along with this Ultimate Decades journey, leave this video a like if you enjoyed it, and also tell me in the comments, do you play Ultimate Decades? for how long you've been playing it, at what year you are now. Also, if you've been playing Ultimate Decades, maybe give some tips and tricks in the comments for people who want to start, and for me too. It's been only 50 years, I'm still learning. That's going to be it for this video, and I see you in the next one. Bye!